Esha Krishnaswamy. And I hope I said that right. I think I did. I've said it enough and I've typed it enough that I hope I didn't butcher it. Love her to death. She talks 1,000 miles a minute. Her website is at historic_Lee, historiclee.substack.com. I am a paid subscriber. I am a friend. She, we are friendly. We do DM, and I saw her share the newsletter. Actually picked up in today's newsletter that she shared this article and said, and it's really long. I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but this is probably the best detailing of exactly what's going on right now in Ukraine. And she said, look, there's no biases really with this. It relies solely pretty much on fact, and it's removing all the hyperbole on both sides about what's actually happening. Right. And this is a he said, she said, but here's what's actually happening type of thing. So Kremlin already held out an olive branch to Zelensky. Succinctly put, Putin expressed his preparedness to engage in discussions with his Ukrainian counterpart with a focus on obtaining a guarantee of neutral status for Ukraine and for the promise of no offensive weapons in its territory. This is a story that you're not going to get anywhere from any of the corporate networks. This is a perspective. Again, Kremlin spokesman said without elaborating that the president formulated his vision, neutral status, and a refusal to deploy weapons. That's the big thing. He doesn't want these guys to join NATO, and he doesn't want them. He wants them to demilitarize and denazify. That's now. Somebody was saying. Somebody said that there are a whole lot of neo-Nazi groups within Russia, and he's allowing that there. I don't know from there might be. I don't know. So we're certainly going to have to look into that. And again, but that doesn't change the fact that there has been an ascendant rise of neo-Nazi groups in Ukraine who have been acting as a state within a state and perpetrated atrocities against the ethnic Russian population that's in that Donbass region, in Donetsk, in Luhansk. Okay, and most people had never even heard of these regions before, either last week or the week before. We have been covering this for a couple of weeks, and we've been talking about Ukraine and the crisis in Ukraine and why there have been these tensions. And who's been talking about a lot about Ukraine has been us and the false flags. And we kind of set this up. We pushed the bear. We pushed they're going to attack now. They're going to attack now. They're going to attack now. Well, finally, guess what? You say it enough, it's going to come true. You keep pushing him. You keep pushing him. He's going to do something. Now, again, nobody expected him to go past those lines and start to move towards Kiev, which I don't even know what the plan is there. But again, he's already meeting supposedly with Zelensky, and now they're going to meet on the Belarusian border. So hopefully cooler heads can prevail and we can stop this relatively quickly. And there's been a ton of misinformation. Again, the Kremlin offer did not come out of the blue. Okay, so there was an appeal to Zelensky to start negotiations, and that interestingly, that this is led by Vadim Novinsky, a Ukrainian billionaire and one of the co-leaders of the opposition bloc. So this is where you're looking at, I think, the more Western affiliated portion of Ukrainians, because there is a Western element here. Not all Ukrainians are neo-Nazi. I mean, let me start saying that right now, make that statement right now. All of this talks about neo-Nazis in Ukraine. There is definitely an element, almost like a Hydra element. And a lot of the cases, I think they don't even realize or know which ones are and which ones aren't loyal to Azov Battalion, which, according to everything I read, is 3,000 people. Do you know what the population of Ukraine is? 44 million. 44 million.
Yeah, and it's like it's half of what Russia is. I know that much.
Okay, but again, 3,000 out of 44 million, and again, that's just the fighting battalion. But of course, they have people that are loyal to them, and then you have the fact that we destabilized their country in 2014. That we inserted a dictator that was friendly to not a dictator, but a leader that was friendly to us. They then elected Vladimir Zelensky, who has been kind of approved by the World Economic Forum with our not so good friends over there. And he was a former comedian, but, very popular vote. He was kind of like we thought he was going to be their Bernie, but yeah, it hasn't really turned out to be that way. But they don't really have the kind of power to dictate terms like the United States does. So, he's elected leader, but he still has to do, in some ways, because of where he's positioned, he has to listen to us. He has to listen to Putin. I mean, you want to talk about literally stuck in the middle, where he's got NATO saying, we're not going to have you join us, but we don't want you to align with Russia at all. And then you've got the pipeline going through. I mean, there are so many different facets and elements to this. And again, that's why I'm not going to go through this whole article, but I did want to point out a couple of points. Okay, so all this suggests that a political track is on standby, right? The Russian game is to force Zelensky to see the writing on the wall. Ukraine's capitulation is a matter of days. Is a matter of days only, and this hybrid war would have the following elements. Okay, this is if this game's out the way Russia wants to see it happen, right? That they will no doubt systematically vanquish the neo-Nazi elements in Ukraine, who have that Russian blood on their hands. Because again, the Azov Brigade has been shelling and attacking and killing people in that region in Ukraine for 8 years since 2014, according to all the reports that we see. And yes, E. Heller, yes, we did see the Lard Bullet video also about how the soldiers were firing at Muslims from the Azov Brigade, and they were actually dipping their bullets in pig lard as a further insult to the Muslims, which was especially gross. Again, so Russia estimates that any crackdown will only strengthen Zelensky's hands, okay, lacking a power base of his own. I think they again want to see Zelensky. Or on the other hand, they Western powers have retrenched panic from Kiev and embittered Zelensky is left to fend for himself. Paradoxically, this also makes him a reasonable interlocutor liberated from the U.S.'s vice-like grip. It's really interesting how they kind of, how do you thread the needle? Right? Here you go. Zelensky's massive mandate in the 2019 election was largely due to wholehearted support from Russian voters who were attracted to his platform of dialogue with Russia and the promise of a negotiated settlement in Donbass with Moscow's help. But in the end, he became a captive of extreme nationalists and a victim of Western manipulation. That's, again, what their position is. And Zelensky and Biden recently had a rough phone conversation. That's really important to understand. All right. Russia's tentative offer appears to be that Ukraine could opt for a status of neutrality on the lines of Austria and Finland, with a self-imposed ban on its NATO membership. Okay, now what is there in that for Zelensky? Well, first of all, they'll stop bombing the country. Want to see that stuff, but that also will, hold the key to easing tensions in the Donbass, because now you've got Russia involved, and apparently there is a large number of Russian separatists, they call them, that have declared independence. And this was another thing that nobody talked about this week, was that Vladimir Putin, in his big speech, I believe it was at the Munich Security Conference, he acknowledged the Luhansk and Donetsk as independent countries. And that was a major thing. So that was basically him, so people saw that as him giving himself permission to protect them at that point. Well, they're now independent nations because basically we said so, and because they've been declaring themselves independent for 8 years and nobody's listening to them. Well, I guess I should frickin' listen to them, and I'll protect them because they were already part of us at one point to begin with. They want to be part of them. They're Russian, okay? They're Russian by nature. They speak Russian, so I'm gonna do it, and that's what's going on here. And nobody thought he was going to do it, right? He could resume his links with the pro-Russian constituency, and this would have implications for his bid of a second term in 2023. Okay, and then also we've got Russia enjoys extensive networking within Ukraine. Hell, the company that I work for, and I'm not going to say which one, it's a big company, but we actually have an office in Moscow, and our Russia office is supposed to work and service and sell to the Ukraine. And I actually was speaking with one of our reps, and I've been very concerned about this and about them and their family, and some of the pictures I've been getting back have just been unbelievable. Footage, scenery, and but they have decided to reassign who's going. I think it's going to be our rep out of Poland will now deal with our Ukrainian office and deal with our clients in Ukraine, because we're assuming that there could potentially be resentment or tensions, of course, now towards Moscow and towards Russia, now that Russia has been bombarded, has attacked, invaded, whatever terminology you want to use to describe what they did this week. But I don't know how friendly Ukrainians are going to be to the Russians at this point. And I think but they still think that even after they do this, there's enough Ukrainians that still want to be part of Russia. Now, again, according to my coworker, that's not what they want. They actually do want to be part of NATO, which was kind of heartbreaking to hear, because at the same time, we've already promised Russia that they would never be part of NATO, being on their border. So I don't know how we square that. Okay, Russia enjoys extensive networking, like I said. As for Russia out of the conditions, what do they get? So there's a whole, again, great breakdown. Will the U.S. acquiesce with the nation process? There is hope that Macron can mediate. Conceivably, he is in touch with Biden. Who knows? They're neo-libs. Birds of a neo-lib WEF feather flock together, right?